Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fuel for Success. This is the 254th episode, and we're coming at you on a Wednesday. I've got my good friend, business partner, and co-host, the one and only Matt Maddox, here with us today, and we're going to be talking about family and relationships and possibly some other life coaching topics. And that's how we're going to roll today. How are you on this Wednesday, my
Hey,
friend?
what's happening? Mike Hopkins. I'm doing good, buddy. Really good. Blessed. I've had my son for 6 straight nights. We've had the time of our life, man. He just finished his first book last night, dude. What a milestone in his life. I'm excited for him. The editor sent the rough draft
That's
back.
amazing.
We got to go through it one more time today. We're waiting on the cover. And then Amazon, here we come. 13-year-old author. Got to give a little shout out to Caleb Maddox, who happens to be in the other room right now.
Right.
Good job, Caleb.
Good job, Caleb.
Uncle Mike says good job.
Hey, shout out to Adam,
Shout out to Adam, who what now?
who stayed up. He works third shift and stayed up to watch the show. Welcome, Adam. Good to see you here this morning.
Hey. Good to
commitment
see you,
right
Adam,
there.
man.
Tell you
Today, Mike, is going to be an exciting show because, Wednesday is our family and relationship day, and, we deal with some life coaching and whatever. And,
Right.
Mike, one thing you and I have committed to on Fuel for Success is 100% transparency and keeping it real and not being afraid to talk about, anything. And pretty much it's our show,
Right.
so we're happy to talk about everything and anything and the real stuff, the real life stuff that people deal with every day. And here's what Mike and I do, my friends. We give our own opinion based on our own experience and our own, values and beliefs. And we don't know it all, but we're certainly learning, and we love to share what we've learned and have a good time doing it. Right, Mike?
That's exactly right. And one of the great advantages is the live viewers that are with us add so much value and bring their own experience as well. So keep the chatter going in the chat box, and by all means, anytime during the show, go ahead and type out a question and submit it to us in writing, in triplicate actually. Send me the canary copy. The fuchsia copy goes to, no, just kidding. Just type in the chat box and let us know. Or if you're listening later or watching on YouTube or a podcast, or you're on the website, send us a text, 727-341-5599, or shoot us an email, mike@mattmaddox.com. That's MATTMADDIX.com. And let us know what your question is. Hey, so I am excited, and I was trying to think of a good tagline for like Keep It Real Wednesday or something, but I couldn't really come up with anything. So
Keep It Real Wednesday sounds
y'all
good.
viewers, come on.
Or Wide Open Wednesday.
This is really
How's
cool.
Wide Open Wednesday?
Wide Open Wednesday. See, that's why you make the big bucks. Okay, so
Down
hey,
to one-liners. So we all know our role here, Mr. Hopkins.
keep our roll. I intro the show, you close it. I'll do the analogies, you do the one-liners.
Oh,
Sounds
that's
great.
just how it goes. So yeah, tell us what we got in store today, Mike.
Hey, well, as you mentioned, it's family and relationships. We've got some questions about dating and being single, and even affairs and marriages. So we're going to be real. We're going to be transparent and do everything that we can to get through some awesome questions here today. So let me just start it out, and then this is something I'm going to have you speak to because I've been out of the dating scene for a couple of decades, although I can speak to in the past.
And you got kids.
Give me
You got.
well,
Yeah.
yes. I have a teenage daughter, but your perspective completely changes on
Yeah.
dating with a teenage
Well,
daughter.
you go from being for it to against it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's a polar shift. Hey, so let me ask you this. In your dating experience, what are the top 3 lessons that you've learned? Give us 3 pieces of advice, lessons you've learned, things that are going to help some of our viewers, or maybe in the looking for that one. And what can you say to them?
Mike, I honestly believe we could learn a lot about dating from watching Shark Tank. Basically, those guys are millionaires and billionaires, and they're that way for a reason, because they don't waste time and they don't waste money. And one thing I like is they ask very strategic questions. And they look for signs. They follow intuition. They look for results. You know, Mike, if we literally followed that in our dating world, we would save ourselves a whole lot of time and energy. And one thing they do is they're either in or out. And a lot of times once they see a red flag, once they see that the person is shady, once they see that it's not a viable
Right.
business that's going to produce results or return on their investment, what do they say? I'm out. You know, they don't wait 6 months. They don't wait 2 years. You know, they literally just say the words, I'm out. And I think, Mike, lesson number one is you got to start asking more strategic questions in the beginning of a relationship. And once you see, a conflict of values, it doesn't matter how unbelievable they are in every other area. You know, it doesn't matter how beautiful she is or how unbelievably, handsome or tall he is or dark hair or whatever your fantasy or dream is. You got to be quick to say, I'm out. You got to be quick to say, you know what? Probably going to be an awesome guy for somebody else, just not me. You know, like there's been times I've watched one of the sharks say, hey, you know what? This is great and I believe this is going to be successful. It's just not something I'm passionate about, or this isn't something that I want to put my time into. So understand that just because someone is not the one for you doesn't make them a bad person. So that would be lesson number one, is seriously, like, apply the law of the Shark Tank. Be quick to be out when you recognize, Mike, we waste too much time. That would be my second lesson, is don't waste time. Most people know pretty much right away. I really believe that. I always did a teaching called How to Know If Someone Is Worth Pursuing in 2 dates or less. That's all I need, Mike. 2 dates. That's it. I know whether or not someone is potentially the one or somebody that I want to invest my time in. See, too many singles are not really doing the single life right. And they're still codependent, so they hold on to people forever. And they end up investing too much time into something that is going to give them no return. Meaning what? It's going to end in heartbreak. It's going to end in, and again, I'm not saying that this is the end of the world, because obviously if you learn something and, I really believe in looking at everything from a positive perspective. So even if you made the mistake of investing too much time, hopefully you learn the lessons and don't keep living a life of insanity. Insanity by definition is what? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And then the third lesson, Mike, is that I've learned in dating is really, and I know this is going to sound cliche, but I would have invested more time into growing and becoming the right one than trying to find the right one. And I'm not even kidding when I say that. Like, I invested too much time in the pursuit of trying to find the right one out there, rather than investing that time into myself, growing and becoming more of the right one. So that would be my top 3 lessons, just right off the top of my head. What about you, Mike? Can you share one or two?
Hey, well, I like everything that you said there, and it made me think that I'm gonna have my daughter study Kevin O'Leary and say, study Kevin O'Leary and apply that to future relationships. Because the thing is that I think that a lot of times people will ignore very loud signals and won't exercise discipline in their personal relationships because of it's feeding their ego or whatever the situation is, when they see very clearly and very early on that there's a non-starter, there's a non-negotiable that's been violated. They know that it's not a good deal, and yet they continue on for feel-good reasons, or because they're afraid to confront the situation or end it or whatever. And that's basically a lack of discipline. And I like how, and going back to your Shark Tank example, Kevin O'Leary always refers to himself as a disciplined investor. And I think that if you're dating, you need to be a disciplined dater and look at the situation and say, okay, does this really make sense? And I don't mean to sound cold-hearted or business. But listen, when I'm in our business, we're as passionate about our business as anything else, right? So just because it's like a business mindset doesn't mean that it lacks passion and lacks emotion. And I think that that's a good principle, to apply.
I love that. I love the disciplined dater. Good analogy. And also about Kevin O'Leary, good one for Danny. Danny, how you doing? Love you. proud of your graduating this year. I'm in tears about it. Have her watch this, Mike, because of this. You know, Kevin doesn't put up with crying in the Shark Tank. And he doesn't let someone's tears change his mind about investing. So don't let some dude crying, Danny, make you feel sorry for him. Let him cry. That's what mommies are for. Let him go see his mama. Or a therapist. But never date someone just because they cry because you're about to break up with them. They won't, I mean.
Yeah. I also just want to reinforce what you said about, always look at it from the positive standpoint. And maybe in your past, you're watching the show and you're like, man, I've made those mistakes. I dated this loser for 3 years and blah, blah, blah. And it's just a waste. Listen, I think it was Mark Twain that said, if you take a cat by the tail, you will learn things that you can learn in no other way. And, which is sage advice. There are certain things that you learn through hardship and through difficulty. And I don't know if you've ever picked a cat up by the tail. It's not exciting, or it's extremely exciting. It's just, not necessarily fun.
We not open that can of worms because.
I'm not advocating you pull a cat's tail. I'm just saying this is a quote from Mark Twain, who was a great, author. Anyways, so understand that there's learning possibilities, and like we've said before, bad decisions make great stories. So,
good quote.
Hey. Let me ask you this now, and sometimes I like what Tommy said, and this is a great way to sort of transition, because I can't say that other word, or I'll owe you $1. But transition to another question. Tommy says, I see a lot of people staying in bad relationships because they fear they will never find anyone else, which is sad. And that's true. And do you think that that's maybe a barrier? And are there other reasons why someone has a hard time finding like the one?
Yeah. Well, Mike, that, fear is number one. The moment someone begins to operate in fear, they're going to come to a complete standstill and complete stop of trying to reach their destiny. There's one thing that cannot happen in your life is fear, because fear is going to sabotage your successes. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're staying in a wrong relationship because you're afraid to be alone, then you're not even ready to be in a relationship, because you're displaying emotional unhealth. And when you're unhealthy emotionally, it doesn't matter. Listen, I've learned this, Mike, talk about a lesson. When you are unhealthy emotionally, even if you were with the one, that relationship is going to be unhealthy. So, like, this is why every single person should be, like, reading books, going to seminars, even doing counseling, so they can get to a place of emotional wholeness and stability emotionally. Because when somebody operates out of fear or codependence, or afraid of being alone, or afraid of being single, or afraid of loss, a lot of people have a fear of loss. Mike, I can relate with all of these things. That's why I can speak to it. I speak to a lot of stuff that I've learned from personally, that I've lived through personally, and that I've seen in my thousands of interactions with people and just observing and watching.
That's good. Speaking of, the one, and I really want to address this, all like, matrix references aside, is there the one for everybody out there? Is there that one person? Is there such a thing as a soulmate? Is there, what is I have my own opinion on that. What is your opinion of that?
Mike, I have my days. I have a romantic side of me that yes, I want to just look at everybody right now and say, yes, there is a soulmate for everybody. And I believe in soulmates, and I do believe there is the one. I got to be honest. There's times I believe in it strongly, and then there's times that the logical side of me takes a look at it and is like, I think you could marry, there's 7 billion people on the planet. I think a lot of it is just time and opportunity. And I think, being at in other words, let's say the one was in Italy or Brazil or, Idaho. I mean, thank God for social media, because, 100 years ago, that would almost be impossible to happen, So, but I don't know, Mike. I mean, Okay, you ready for this? My truth is this. If I'm sitting down with Caleb and he says, Dad, he's 13 years old. Do you believe there's the one person for everybody? I'm going to say this. I do believe that God is involved in your marriage selection. I do believe God knows all. God sees all. And I do believe if you give that decision to him and trust him, I do believe God will lead you to the one that is best for you and that you're best for them. Mike, I could talk the whole show about this because I know we've got other subjects. I really could dive deep into this and give you my theories and beliefs. I'm going to say to every single person out there, there is one, there is one I believe God has chosen for you. Let me say that. And I believe, somebody once said, what if the one that God has chosen for me, I'm not attracted to? Well, then I would say, well, that's not God because God would never do that. God's not going to make you marry somebody that you're not attracted to. So that's faulty thinking automatically right there. I've literally seen people do this. Like, well, you know what? I don't really have attraction for them. Listen, I wholeheartedly believe in chemistry. I believe that you need to find somebody that you are, here's what the Bible says. Can two walk together except they be agreed? As much as I believe in having your own opinion, I believe that if you can find somebody that you agree with on every core value that you have passion for, I believe life will be so much easier. I mean, I've seen couples like get married and they literally have never had the conversation about disciplining children. And I've counseled a lot of married couples that have major fights over this issue. I could name 10 issues I've counseled married couples with. And I ask them, did you guys not talk about this when you were dating? No, because most dating people nowadays, Mike, don't have real conversations. It's shallow. It's text driven. Look, man, you should not be texting your boyfriend or girlfriend only to just say, I miss you or whatever. You should never have conversations and text with your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's a whole other subject. But Mike, that's our generation.
It is. It is. And the difference is informational conversations are probably okay over text or even email. Anything bordering on emotion is best, best used voice inflection to communicate that. My personal view of that is that I do not for one second believe that there's the one or the one soulmate for an individual. I think that there's at least, several hundred that would hit that mark at any given point in time. And I think that time and opportunity, as you said, timing is critical. And the person that's perfect for you in a relationship today, 2 years from now, they're going to be divergent paths. So you cross paths with a certain person at a certain time. And I don't want to sound like unromantic or overly pragmatic or engineering or mathematical or whatever, because I've been married for over 20 years, and my wife and I have an amazing synergy and all those sort of things. And would that mean that she's the one or that we're soulmates? I don't think that's true at all. In fact, to use a business analogy, you know what? Ideas are cheap, right? Implementation is extremely expensive, and to find a good idea or to find a good spouse is a lot easier than building a good marriage.
Good quote. Yeah, Mike. I mean, and like I said, there's 7 billion people in the world, and I believe there's many, many people. Look, love is a choice. At the end of the day, every relationship is going to have, you're talking about a male and a female. You can't get any more different. You cannot get any more different than male and female, folks. You just can't. So like, then you're talking about people from like, there's every part of a marriage coming together, they're different. I mean, they grew up in different homes, different personalities of parents, different styles of parenting, there's so many differences. So at the end of the day, Mike, it is a choice. It is a decision. Like when you say I do, that's like I do. That means action. I do. That means I'm committing to make this work. Now, obviously, Mike, I do believe that when someone has an extremely high calling from God and a big purpose, like, look, my life has evolved, and like there's just certain people that I could marry if I wasn't in business. There's certain people that I could marry if I wasn't into missions work. And I would like be like, oh yeah, that would be awesome, but I just can't see them like hanging out in a
Right.
homeless shelter with me. You know what I mean? Or like, or like I can't see them like being okay with us selling furniture to start another business. So you gotta have somebody that obviously gets you. And in my case, that's quite hard to find.
Hey, so let me jump to the next question, and in our wide open Wednesday here, or keeping it real Wednesday, or whatever we're calling it. And this is unfortunately a tragic situation that a lot of people face, and for anybody that's experienced this, it's got to be heartbreaking. Anyone who's recently learned their spouse is having an affair, what is your advice for that person?
Look, man, number one, don't go crazy. Obviously, when you find out that you've been cheated on, there's like crazy emotions, right? You've got to be stable in your thinking and not react emotionally. And I mean, I'm talking like crazy stuff like, I mean, Mike, I've seen people do some crazy stuff in the heat of the moment, the passion, the emotion. So that's
Right.
number one. You've got to stabilize your emotions, your anger. Listen, when you've gone through an affair, only those that have lived through it, listen, unless someone's lived through it, they can't even talk about it. They can sit there and say, that's like me trying to relate to someone whose kid drowned, who watched their kid drown, right? I was talking to a good friend of mine who's in my health 90 now, God bless him, who watched his son drown on his son's 17th birthday. I can't relate with that. Listen, that he's got nightmares and fears and pains that I literally have never experienced. So someone that's never lived through an affair doesn't know just how extremely tormenting it can be to someone's mind, especially, I mean, there's so many different types of affairs, and it depends, it's a broad, it depends on like how much deception was involved. So my best advice is this. I'm going to give you three things because, number one is my best advice. Number one is to immediately get a pastor, a counselor, somebody that you can share, a best friend. Now, a best friend is, that best friend can't be someone, it's got to be someone that can listen because, Mike, when you've gone through an affair, you've got to talk. You've got to vent. You got to share every emotion, everything, and like you've got to be able to just pour it out, So that would be number one. Number two is, Mike, is obviously, this goes deep, and I don't think we'll have time today to really dive in. Maybe next week we can. But, look, man, if there is hope for that marriage, you have to go to professional counseling. You have to. There's just no way that an affair can be survived without it, in my opinion, without professional counseling. But I want to speak to that because a lot of it depends on the level of deception of the person that's committed the affair and their true remorse and their true desire to save the marriage or whatever. I mean, Mike, like I said, dude, we could talk about this all month. We could take 4 shows and talk about this subject because it goes deep. Because there's so many different scenarios. Hey, listen, my next piece of advice is to, when you go through an affair, your whole world's going to crash. You're going to feel rejected. You're going to feel betrayed. You're going to feel crushed. You're going to feel like every emotion you could imagine. But you can't let go of your life. You can't stop eating right, exercising, going to church. You can't like isolate yourself from your friends and your family. And sometimes you got to tell your friends and family, look, I'll tell you when I want to talk about it. I had to do this. There's times I looked at my friends and said, look, I just don't want to talk. Let's just hang, literally because.
Right. Some normal.
Yeah, be
Right.
normal. Like seriously, when somebody's lived through it and experienced it, sometimes they need to talk about it, and sometimes talking about it is the worst thing they can do. So there's a balance there. So let's kind of dive into some of the questions because I think we have a follow-up question to this. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Well, I want to address Adams here, and he said, you know, in his case, what if you're the one who had the affair, and how do you help heal that relationship? I think what you said about, you know, your second point, that if you're going to reconcile that relationship, there's no way to really do it without professional counseling. I think that's great advice that speaks to either side of it. What else would you have to say to Adam?
Adam, first of all, I admire your transparency. I don't know if you did or maybe, whatever, if you're asking this on behalf of someone else. But, Mike, this is common, bro. I mean, look, man, affairs they happen every day. They happen to people that literally never thought they would have had an affair. I mean, it can happen. Like, people think that everyone that has an affair is like this. Like, look, man, it can happen, man. This is the real world we live in. So, Adam, first thing I would say is if to anyone that's watching this, because there's a lot, we've had over 400,000 people watch Fuel for Success. So who knows? There might be some people watching this that's the guilty party. You had the affair. If you had the affair and you want to save your marriage, the first thing I will tell you is, for no reason whatsoever do you justify your actions, make excuses. You've got to take full responsibility. That's number one. Number two, you've got to immediately stop, break off all connection from that person. All. I mean, all. It's got to be extreme cut. See, Mike, when people have affairs, there's emotional attachment. It's not just physical. There's like emotional attachment to the person they had the affair to. So a lot of times they had the affair, they feel, oh my God, I don't want to lose my marriage, but yet they still have this emotional tie to the person that they were like sleeping with. And of course, it's not just sex, my friends. It's not. There's so many emotional, spiritual connections when you have sex with somebody that, look, man, this is a real deal. Like saving a marriage, saving and surviving an affair. I would venture to say maybe 1 in 10 can actually survive it and really survive it long term. But I would say this, Adam. Number two is cut all ties with the person that you were cheating with or sleeping around with or whatever. Number three is I would tell you to listen. And when sometimes they may throw things, they may flip out, they may scream at you, they may just go quiet. You've got to be prepared to know that you crushed your spouse. You broke all trust. Like, if you're going to like win her or him back, you've got to listen when they're venting. You can't say, well, come on, you got to let that go. You can't say stuff like that. Like, when you break someone's trust, you don't have the right to tell them when they let something go. You don't have that right. That's got to be a counselor that says that, or a best friend or somebody, not you. When you break someone's trust, you've lost the right to give advice or to tell someone what to do with their feelings or when to act a certain way. I feel strong about that. But Adam, you got to the only way to win back is through consistency, rebuilding trust, one little step at a time. And that little step forward might mean 10,000 steps backward. And if you go 10,000 steps backward because they just shut down on you, they ignore you, they won't take your calls. Look, man, consistency. Every little step in the right direction. You have no choice. You got to take every single action you can take. You got to go to the extreme. Like, you've got to be willing to give her your password to your Facebook. You got to be willing to let her check your phone. And that means the phone records. I mean, that like extreme. I'm talking like extreme. Like, and again, I'm only addressing Adam's question of if you want to win her back,
Right.
So, and obviously, Adam, I could talk to this another 20 minutes. I'm giving you just as much as I can right now because I know this show could go long just to try to help you, my friend.
Right. Yeah, and Adam, I applaud you for before you even said that about taking responsibility, he'd already put that in. He's like, full responsibility here. So that's definitely the first step, I think.
Hey, I have a lot of respect for Adam. Adam, I'm going to start praying for you. And listen, man, I did a deal yesterday for our My Health 90 members about how to live a regret and guilt-free life. Obviously, when you've done something like that, sometimes the regret and guilt never leaves. But I also believe if someone has had an affair, at some point, you've got to forgive yourself. And I know that's easier said than done, but at some point, you can't live the rest of your life with this cloud of guilt And, at some point, Adam, if she never takes you back, you've got to learn from it, grow from it, and forgive yourself and be stronger for you. Again, Mike, this is a huge subject, man.
Yeah, and our friend Al's whacking the hornet's nest with a stick again, as he likes to do. So excellent conversation going on over here. Um, let me ask this. I want to actually jump to the last question because we're almost out of time, and I wanted to get to this. And in some cases, we've got people that are watching the show or listening who've it's gone wrong and they've ended in divorce, or it's been a very bad relationship that ended badly. What are some tips for those people to heal from those bad relationships, from those divorce scenarios?
First of all, I saw a comment, I believe it was by Rachel, that said some pastors are not qualified to give counseling in these situations. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And again, I would never knock any pastor because I admire what they do, but it's true. Some of them, just because they're a pastor doesn't mean they're qualified to know how to give counsel to a couple. Like, I literally prefer that people go to professional counseling. I really do. Because there's a reason the professional counselors. There's a reason they're certified. They've gone to school for it. They've obviously had experience in dealing with this. They know how. Mike, I believe in professional counseling. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to your pastor because I believe you should, but it's okay to go to professional counseling. Anyways, the question is, guys, listen. I lived through an affair. I would never expose but it's no secret. I would never publicly in a book or out here on a forum like this expose my son's mom in that way, but it's no secret. She shared her experience with it and whatever. But I lived through it, so I can speak to it. I know what it's like. So the question, Mike, was this: what was it? How do you survive it, or what do you do?
Some tips for healing from a divorce or bad relationship.
The number one pet peeve that I have, and it makes me mad. I see it on Facebook. I probably saw it like in 4 couples this Valentine's Day. And if you're watching, yes, I'm calling you out. But these people that jump from one relationship to another are unhealthy, codependent people. I don't care what anybody says. I say that humbly, but they're codependent because there's no way that you can go from being intimate physically with somebody and then a month or 2 down the road, be with somebody else in that way and be healthy. Just scientifically, you can't. So, like, Mike, the number one danger of somebody going through a breakup or definitely a divorce is dating again right away. Although it's the most common thing to do because you're so rejected, so hurt, and you're so just you want validation. You want to know that you're worthy or that you're not going to be single the rest of your life. Trust me, my friend. There's 7 billion people on the planet. Trust me. If nothing else, Mike and I will start a dating service called My Dating 90 and find you a spouse. Trust me, you're going to be okay. But, look, man, please, I would almost get on my hands and knees and beg you not to date. I would love for you to go a year, but definitely 6 months. 6 months, I wouldn't even consider meeting anybody for coffee, tea, dinner, breakfast, walk, anything. Give yourself time. Mike, you can't rush healing. If someone breaks their leg, you can have the best doctor in the world. I don't care. That leg's got to be in a cast, and you need to be in a cast, an emotional cast. You need a cast around your heart and your emotions and give it time to heal. That would be number one. I would go to counseling. I went through 6 months of counseling, Mike, and it saved my life, man. I wish I'd have done it earlier. I didn't do it till 6, 7 years after my divorce. And I made a lot of mistakes because of that. I made a ton of mistakes because of that. I would read a lot of books. I would get highly involved in missions work and living purpose. I would also, I would get in shape. I would stay in shape. In other words, a lot of people, when they go through a divorce, Mike, they tend to let themselves go or they run to another relationship. So I would just, those are the things just off the top of my head. And again, Mike, we will dive back into this next week because these subjects you go deep into them and you still can't answer everything. But I want to get to some of the comments and questions that have come in, Mike.
Yeah, I like what Rachel and Mary both basically echoed, that some counselors and some rule of thumb is that it should be actually much longer than 6 months. And of course, Matt said, a minimum of 6 months. I think that's a good rule of thumb. Rachel's saying that in some cases, 6 months for every year that you were in the relationship, for complete healing, which could be a pretty extensive period of time.
Well,
So
it's
that's
true.
definitely
I tell
definitely
people to go
interesting.
through
And I like
every
what
season. You need to go through every holiday, every season. So that's why I
yeah.
say a year. Like if someone was coming to me right now that just went through a divorce, you know what I would tell them? I don't care if you got to cry on your pillow every night. I don't care if you got to watch The Notebook every night. I don't care what you have to do. Don't date for a year. That would straight up be my advice. And Mike, trust me, I've worked with a lot of people. I've lived some real life experiences. I'm giving you advice that I know works. If you'll give it a year, and some people even need more because if they don't do the work, Mike, a year's a rule of thumb. If you don't do the work to fix this and this, you might need 5 years. In my case, Mike, I ignored the pain and I went on a dating, marathon, and I ignored the pain and didn't deal with I didn't do the inner work. And, obviously I probably delayed my future because of that. Who knows? But that's the lessons I've learned. I did wait a year to date. I definitely did that. But I'm saying that just because someone waits a year doesn't mean they're all of a sudden ready to get married or get into a serious relationship. You got to do the inner work.
Right.
I'm sorry, but I love what Lance said, and he's right. Mission 25 and My Health 90 is good therapy for anybody going through a divorce or a life tragedy. Trust me, we'll pour some energy into you. Mike, you were about to say something.
Yeah, for sure. Was I? I don't remember. I was probably reading comments, and I've since moved on. So many great comments are coming in. Thank you so much to our live audience. It's been tremendous, and Al's ready for my dating 90, and Mary wants to know if that's 90 years.
Al, I love you. You need it, my friend. As much as I love you, Al, I appreciate Al. He gets in here and he gets, and it's all about dialogue. I appreciate it. You got to get some conversation started.
Yeah.
Mike, so maybe let's kind of sum it up and give people 3 to 5 takeaways from today's show. Let's each kind of dive into that. You give a few, and then I'll sum up a few.
Sure. Well, I like going back to the sort of the first questions when we were talking about dating advice.
You want it in 90 minutes. Mike, just so you know, we can't hear you. Your sound cut out, so I know you can probably hear me. I want to encourage everybody out there, and while we're waiting on Mike to come back, I want to encourage you. Guys, let's say you made horrible decisions. Let's say you went through a divorce and you dated and you shouldn't have, and let's say you're now on your second divorce or whatever. Let's say you had an affair. Let's say you've lived through an affair. Let's say you've been single 12 years and you don't get why anybody's not pursuing you. I want to encourage every single one of you to let go of the past and live in the present and forgive yourself and forgive those that have hurt you. And do the inner work. There's a lot of inner work that people need to do of emotional healing. That's what we do in My Health 90. We don't just help people with juicing and drinking water. That's why I don't like diets, because a lot of diets don't fix people emotionally. We at My Health 90 also help fix people emotionally. But anyways, Mike, you were about to say something, then I'll dive back into that.
Well, I don't know exactly where my audio dropped there, but I was saying that. So be a disciplined dater. So don't get your emotions too wrapped up in it, and make good decisions based on fact, and be disciplined in that area. I think that another thing that I would pull from this is that in cases of broken or bad relationships, there's no substitute for time. There's no shortcut. There's no quick way to heal. It just takes time to heal, and don't try to rush the process, and do the internal work. And those are a couple of takeaways that I really, really pull from this one.
Very good. And I want to thank all of our live viewers. I loved all the transparency, the questions, the comments, those that are watching on the archives later. Sometimes Mike and I might come across a little extreme in our views and teachings. That's because a lot of stuff we've lived, we've watched people, we've helped people. I've done a lot of life coaching for people that have gone through a divorce, a lot of life coaching for people that have gone through an affair. And, I just cringe on Facebook, Mike, when I see all these people that go through a divorce and 2 or 3 months later they're married again, or they're engaged, or they're dating. Just think, man, please take it slow. And I know this doesn't make sense. I know you're like, are you kidding me? You don't know what I went through. I deserve this. Yes, you do deserve it. When the time is right, that's when you deserve it. So do the inner work. I want to send you home with doing the inner work. How you do the inner work? I'll tell you to read the book Boundaries. I'll tell you to, if you can afford counseling, do it. If you can't, stay connected to stuff like Fuel for Success, because every Wednesday, Mike and I talk about family and relationships. There's a book on trust that I read once that was life-changing. I'll have to pull it back out next week. I still do life coaching, so hit me up, email me. I'll see what I can do to help you guys. I'd be happy to. Yeah, you're right, Rachel. The sharks are extreme. So, Mike, we're like the shark. Is this the Shark Tank of success?
Interesting.
Shark
Perhaps.
Tank dating?
No, I don't like where the visual took me on that one. But yeah, actually, you know what? You and me, and we'll get a couple other guys, and we'll do the Shark Tank, and my daughter can bring in potential dating people.
Oh, yeah, that would
be like, so tell me about your plans for the future.
I would love that. Hey,
where do you work?
Real quick.
What kind of grades do you get?
That. We would be like, okay, first of all, let me ask you a question. Do you have a job? Yes. Where do you work at? Okay, good. What's that?
I'd be like, pull your pants up. I'm out.
Come here, Caleb. My goodness, say hi to everybody.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Caleb.
Do you believe in the one? Do you believe there's the one for you?
I mean, I guess so. I choose someone.
You believe in a soulmate?
Yeah, I think so.
Mike,
I liked what Mike said. I was listening to it, how there's a ton of different ones. But yeah, I think there's a full one.
You do.
Yeah,
so you're a little on the romantic side, you're saying.
A little bit, I think. A little bit.
You got any advice out there for kids? Because a lot of kids watch our shows whose parents have gone through a divorce. Any advice for them?
Just always find the positive and really just make sure to give each of your parents the same amount of, quality time and just view them the same way. Don't ever view them differently. And it'll all work out. You don't have to worry about that. That's Mike's gone now.
Any advice for parents going through a divorce on what they should or shouldn't do with their kids?
Well, number one is just give a ton of quality time to your kids, the same amount as you would if you guys were married. Don't ever, don't ever just let one person do all the work. Split it. Give them equal love.
What
Make
else?
them feel loved on both sides.
What mistakes do you think parents make that are divorced with their kids? All honesty, put it right out here. Call me out.
All right. I think it's different with every parent, but one that I see a lot is when they, one parent takes over everything, and I think it's important for you to do each activities with your kid. Like, one may take them whatever putt golfing or whatever thing you do. One may go to the beach, whatever. Just keep it a balanced thing.
Are you hurt? I'm gonna take you putt more.
No. We have fun.
Good to have Caleb on the show. Homeschooler, man. Real quick.
Yeah.
You just wrote a book called Keys to Success for Kids. Can you share like one thing that's in your book for all the kids that are watching?
No, I want them to read it. But no, I'll give them something. It depends what you want me to talk about.
One thing that's in your book that you think would help kids.
Number one, not to make excuses, and that's kind of the first chapter. I kind of just go over it. It kind of is getting rid of your excuses and living an excuse-free life and taking 100% responsibility for your life. And I think that's a big key for kids because we make excuses about making excuses, and we're always like, You know, I don't make excuses, but that's in yourself. Or we're like, well, this is why I made that excuse. Well, that's an excuse for making the excuse. So we come up with so many excuses, and if you take 100% responsibility of your life, it'll be a lot better and a lot more productive.
So you're saying you don't believe in excuses
No,
at all?
Good
no.
stuff.
I love it. Good kid right here.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Adam, really, I read it
Thanks,
last
Caleb.
night, and really, I'm not just saying this. It's a book that adults should read as well, even though it's kid. I was like, wow, my son wrote this. Holy moly, he's putting me out of business here. Hey, Mike, great time. You were about to say something, my friend?
Nope,
Hey,
I wasn't.
I love you. Sorry we went
Thanks.
15
Thanks
minutes
to Caleb
over
for being
our
on here.
show. Our bad. We love you. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And, hey, if this show helps, send it out. Friends and family. Put it on your Facebook and spread the word about Fuel for Success. God bless you guys. We'll see y'all tomorrow at 9:30 EST. Thanks for being with us, Adam.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great Wednesday. God bless.